Thank you very much, Jennifer, and good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I'm Boyana Bellamy. I lead Center for Information Policy Leadership. Those of you who might be joining from the big white world and don't know about us, we are global privacy and data policy think and do tank operating out of London, Washington, and Brussels. I'm really delighted to welcome everybody here with our leadership team and our team who's been working very hard on this particular topic of agentic AI. And what we're going to do today is actually use this 1 hour to launch our latest report on agentic AI. With big thanks, of course, to all the members who were participating in the project, who gave all their input, and in particular, 3 of our members, Salesforce, HCL, and Workday. And you will hear from these leaders as well today on the webinar. Just perhaps a couple of points to make on why we at CIPL think this is an important topic. First of all, as you know, for some time we have been working on the topic of AI and specifically in 2 ways. One, we were looking as to how do AI systems work with current data protection rules and current laws and requirements. And we have identified a number of those tensions between data protection rules and principles and how some of the AI systems and models operate. Of course, there was a lot of focus, as you know, at the beginning on LLMs, right? The large language models. And it's interesting, many of us were just in Brussels at the big IPP event, as well as had some other sessions like Global Privacy Assembly, where there was a lot of discussion of AI. And when you listen to these discussions, you hear lots of discussions still focusing on LLMs and large language models. Yet, the topic of agentic AI is becoming more relevant because it's becoming more used, but we are still not there talking about what this really means for all of us in terms of compliance, implementation, and how do these tensions that we have identified in respect to normal LLMs and AI, how does that work now in this world of agentic AI? So, and I can tell you, this is just going to get intensified, right? It's all going to get even more complex. And the second reason why we think that this is really important is because CIPL, again, has been working very early on the notion of organizational accountability. And that is accountability in data privacy, accountability in data management, and of course, accountability in AI. Again, we think that what we have learned in our work is going to be very relevant as we think about this new evolution of AI into agentic AI. The questions of accountability, of governance, who is responsible for what, are going to be really very interesting. And this is really why we have embarked on this project, and Jennifer and the team worked very hard to produce this first paper, which was focusing on B2B agentic AI. We are going to be continuing. We are going to be looking at agentic AI in B2C, in consumer applications, but we thought this would be really a beginning of a very important start. Just the last comment. There is no day, I think, right? No day that we do not see yet another paper from consultancies, thinkers, those who are applying and developing agentic AI about the rise of AI, agentic AI, right? I just got something from McKinsey where they talk about 8 in 10 companies are actually deploying agentic AI today. And there's a real interest in this technology because the paradox of AI, which is so much investment has gone into AI, but we are not seeing the results in return on investment. Everybody thinks the experts, as well as those who are investing and are looking into AI, they think that this moment of actually understanding the ROI and realizing the ROI is going to happen with agentic AI because that is just that extra that we needed. LLMs, of course, are going to persist, but of course, agentic AI is going to provide these additional benefits. So that is why there is so much investment and so much interest into these new technologies. I am particularly interested, and you will see that our paper talked about that, in what agentic AI can do for us us privacy, data, cyber professionals. I think there are great opportunities for agentic AI to help with compliance, help with implementing the rules, delivering better privacy, better security, ultimately to people. And I think this is something that our paper, again, hints at, looks at some case studies and examples, and I'm sure our panel will talk about that. I know there's a lot of interest from regulatory community to understand how agentic AI can actually be deployed in this way. So with that, I really very much look forward to the excellent discussion that I know will take place. Stephen Almond, our Vice President, will be leading that. But before that, I think we're going to hear from Jennifer Jin, who's been relentlessly working and leading this project and working with our members to present the findings of our report. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Boyana. Again, hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Jin. Thank you so much for joining us today. And before our panel discussion, I'll be taking some time to outline key takeaways and recommendations from our paper to help level set for the conversation ahead. Agentic AI has the potential to transform business processes and customer experiences across a range of industries. And we're already seeing several companies working to rapidly scale their investment, development, and adoption of agentic AI. Civil is really excited to have recently published our new paper on fostering responsible and beneficial development and adoption of agentic AI, again, particularly in the B2B context. And we highlight the benefits of agentic AI, clarify the potential risks and governance challenges, and identify practical solutions for both business leaders and policymakers. Civil worked over a period of several months to research and interview leading developers and deployers of agentic AI, including the organizations represented in our panel discussion later. So, what is agentic AI? There's 4 key features that distinguish it from other forms of AI, like generative or general purpose AI: autonomy, adaptability, learning, and orchestration. And it's also important to distinguish between agentic AI systems and AI agents. We can think of the system as essentially the framework, and AI agents are the building blocks within that framework. So AI agents are built to automate specific tasks within defined parameters. For example, you can think of customer support agents that can answer predefined questions, resolve issues, and guide customers through scripted processes. Whereas an agentic AI system operates a complex network of agents and can facilitate interactions between agents and humans. They have the capacity to operate autonomously and handle complex tasks that require things like reasoning, adaptability, and problem solving. You can think of autonomous vehicles as an agentic AI system, or supply chain management systems that manage inventory autonomously by predicting demand and adjusting delivery routes as needed. These are a few of the value adds that organizations have seen from deploying agentic AI in enterprise settings. The first is efficiency and productivity. Agentic AI can autonomously handle routine tasks and automate repetitive workflows without continuous human prompting, which can help reduce labor costs and efficiencies and help streamline operations. Adaptability and scalability. It can process vast data streams in real time to provide actionable insights for smarter, data-driven decisions and enable rapid responses to changes in the market, in regulations, or the supply chain. Decision quality and consistency. It can reduce the potential for human error and variability by applying standardized logic across tasks, which is especially valuable in contexts that require consistent application of either organizational or regulatory policies. Innovation and problem solving can augment employee capabilities and offer learning-based recommendations, which frees up capacity for teams to focus on strategic, higher value problem solving and creativity. And finally, resilience and continuity. It can act as an intelligent, autonomous layer that strengthens business resilience by providing continuous operational coverage around the clock, detecting anomalies, and automating crisis response systems. While agentic AI's potential benefits are diverse and significant, the technology also carries challenges and risks for governance and compliance. We highlight many of these as well as the paths to address them in our paper across 6 core buckets. However, it's important to highlight that many of these risks and challenges are not new, but rather have been heightened in scale, impact, and complexity due to agentic AI's broadened capacity for autonomous decision-making. So first is purpose and proportionality. Agentic AI training and deployment raise important questions about core data protection principles, such as legal basis, purpose definition and limitation, and data minimization. It will be important to interpret these principles in a flexible enough manner, particularly in forthcoming legal requirements, so that they don't act as barriers to lawful and beneficial innovation. While we won't go into each element here, we explore these in greater depth in the paper. Second is control and accountability. Agentic AI's increased autonomy, expanded capacity for decision-making, and interactions between agents can increasingly complicate the previously understood definitions of roles and responsibilities along the value chain. Key questions such as who will be responsible for what and how to implement meaningful human oversight and redress mechanisms will need to be explored further between relevant stakeholders. Integrity and reliability. Organizations should strive to protect the integrity and reliability of agentic AI, especially as they're given more autonomy over business operations and customer outcomes. Ensuring data quality and provenance and accuracy of systems, as well as reducing the potential for bias, discrimination, misinformation, and cascading errors will be critical to enable consistent, accurate performance of agentic AI technologies. Transparency and explainability. Agentic systems are inherently more complex than traditional AI systems since they combine things like reasoning, memory, multi-step planning, and autonomous decision-making across multiple tools and environments. While these capabilities can deliver immense value for businesses, they can come at the cost of factors like transparency, explainability, and even auditability. Security and resilience. Deploying agentic AI in enterprise environments introduces expanded risks to security and system resilience that may go beyond what we've experienced with AI so far. And while agents can be leveraged for cybersecurity benefits, which I'll go into a little bit later, they can also be exploited across bad actors to cause harm through data breaches, unauthorized system access, or exfiltration of business and user data. And finally, alignment and human agency. As agentic AI systems and agents pursue complex objectives and adapt over time, they must not only demonstrate strong technical performance, but also remain aligned to organizational values, legal boundaries, and human intentions. So ensuring this alignment and demonstrating that systems can stay consistent and transparent will be a major challenge for responsible deployment. Though agentic AI can pose potential risks to both privacy and cybersecurity, many organizations are actually recognizing how they can leverage them to enable and support privacy and cyber efforts. So for privacy, agents can help reduce unnecessary access and collection of data, which minimizes the opportunity for human-driven privacy incidents and serve as intermediaries in the first line of defense. Agents can also be used to automate privacy programs and controls by triaging incidents and responding to data subject access requests. Technical controls will be key here in mitigating potential privacy risks, such as retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, or adopting relevant privacy-enhancing technologies, or PETs, where appropriate. And for cybersecurity, agents can help reduce the number of human touch points that can open vulnerabilities for privacy breaches, data leaks, or regulatory violations by consistently applying organizational protocols. Agents can also be deployed proactively for threat detection and response by continuously monitoring systems, searching for vulnerabilities, and flagging unusual activity. As a safeguard against these potential cyber risks, companies are researching methods to secure agents' digital identities to track and attribute agent actions and support human oversight. It's important to remember that agentic AI is not fundamentally different. It's a novel application of similar issues that we've dealt with before. CIPL's previously done research on accountability, particularly in the context of AI, as well as our accountability framework can serve as a useful lens to map how organizations are practically implementing governance of agentic AI. All of these 7 core elements of the CIPL accountability framework that you see on the screen work in tandem to help organizations navigate rapid changes to both technology and the regulatory landscape. Some of the governance measures that we recommended in the paper include 1, taking a risk-based approach to ensure that governance measures for a specific deployment or application of a technology or a particular use of data are proportionate to the likelihood and severity of potential harms. 2, implementing a risk assessment process that comprehensively assesses, identifies, and mitigates the potential risks of harms and is integrated with other relevant risk assessments for areas of digital regulation. 3, adopting robust data governance measures to define parameters on things like data access and processing, and learning to not only ensure compliance, but also build trust with customers, business partners, and regulators. 4, implementing an appropriate and meaningful level of human oversight across the AI value chain. And lastly, 5, enabling interoperability of agentic systems, which will be critical with increased agentic integration and interaction. Rapid advancements in agentic AI will inevitably test the effectiveness of organizations' existing AI governance. But CIPL's research demonstrates that organizations are already working proactively to ensure that their current practices remain flexible enough to cover the dynamic nature of the technology while still mitigating the potential risks. And based on our research, we offer the following recommendations specifically for organizations. Again, I'm not going to speak to all of these, but I'll just highlight a few. 1, responsible innovation starts from the top, ensuring that senior leadership are setting and signaling that responsible AI is an organizational priority and are working to shape culture that will help make it a shared goal and a vision that every employee can contribute to. Adapting existing governance can support the rapid implementation of appropriate policies and procedures for agentic AI, which may make it easier for organizations to address the new risks posed by agentic AI rather than if starting from scratch. And finally, a crawl, walk, run approach to agentic AI adoption can encourage early wins and reduce roadblocks for expansion. Essentially, identify low-risk pain points within existing processes that currently require intensive human resources, and tackling those over high-risk challenges can encourage early wins, build confidence in the workforce and the technology. Additionally, policymakers and regulators are being asked to foster innovation while safeguarding against its unique risks. The absence of clear, harmonized frameworks is already creating legal uncertainty, fragmented governance, and barriers to responsible adoption. CIPL offers the following recommendations for policymakers and regulators to help create an effective regulatory environment that encourages responsible development and adoption of agentic AI for all organizations. So a risk-based approach that takes context-specific risk assessment mitigation measures to agentic AI can foster innovation while ensuring the proper mitigation of risks, enabling regulatory sandboxes that foster experimentation and create a safe space for organizations, and recognizing that regulators play a critical role in fostering open multi-stakeholder dialogue. And we always encourage that all relevant stakeholders, including regulators, organizations, to work together to ensure compliance, demonstrate accountability, and build trust for everyone. So thank you so much for listening. I'm enjoying this call. I'll pass it over to Stephen Almond to take over the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen, and congratulations on a fantastic report. I'm delighted to welcome 3 leaders who are absolutely at the top of their field in this work. We have Ed Britton from Salesforce, we have Sarah Lloyd from HCL Tech, and we have Barbara Cosgrove from Workday. And we are going to dive into 4 areas today. We're going to explore how these organizations are using agentic AI themselves. So the opportunities of agentic AI, the risks, and how those risks are being mitigated, and indeed, actually, the opportunities for using agentic AI to mitigate some of those risks, and then what does all this mean for emerging regulation and standards and indeed interoperability in this space? Look, let's kick off with an organization that's been very public in its commitment to using agentic AI. Ed, can you talk us through how Salesforce is currently leveraging agentic AI to drive a bit, some real opportunities here?
Yes, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Boyana, Jennifer, Sipple, for hosting this discussion. Love talking agents. At Salesforce, we're all in on agents. It's our big bet. Agentforce is our premier product. We're putting agents into all of our products and services. I'm using agents and agentic AI. So we're not only using it ourselves, but we're seeing the benefits and trying to provide those same benefits to our customers, particularly in the sales and services space. As a privacy geek, it's easy for me to advocate for agents because I'm excited that agents enable our customers to gain more insights from data. I'm already experiencing those benefits internally myself and getting more inputs and signals on how to run a privacy program effectively. But across all business organizations, you get more signals, but at the same time, better protect and minimize data, as Jennifer talked about in the intro, because you can access more data, get more signals from more data without having to have humans actually access that data. You can get the outputs from the data and the learnings from the data. The data just provides the context, but you don't have to actually have humans figuring this all out anymore. As a consumer, I'm excited about the better sales and service experiences. I mean, we've all sought service in our lives, and the service industry hasn't been particularly great lately. But with agents, service can be better tailored to you, to your needs and wants. It can more effectively take in all the inputs about what you're interested in without you still want to work with humans, but a service agent could be a human, and that human can use an agent to help them quickly answer questions and address someone's needs. And that's exciting to me. Also, as I alluded to, we're using agents to effectively scale and run our privacy program. And I'd love to help our customers and Sipple members and others do the same. The benefits are tremendous. As privacy leaders, we're always jealous of someone, right? Who's we feel like is doing more, has more resources. It has some sort of edge. Well, with agents, I've calmed down on that a little bit because we can really scale effectively and do more with less. And so that's something I'm also very excited about.
Wow. Great, excellent sales pitch there. Barbara, Sarah, any kind of use cases in your context that you really want to sort of shout about in terms of how you're using AI agents?
Yeah, I can just share a little bit about AI Force, which is our flagship product at HCL Tech. It has a platform, the core, where it has a lot of utilities, including a governance, risk, and compliance suite. So anything that's built on top of the platform can avail itself of all of these utilities to help on a responsible AI perspective. So we're really excited about that. And one of our core use cases is the service transformation that happens across the software development lifecycle. So that starts, even from the early stages of brainstorming and requirements development through design documentation, through development itself and coding, then the iteration process of testing, and also documentation that is required, just as good practice when you're building software, but also important for having that base for regulators if they need to come in and see what's been done and what's been adapted. So that's a great example of an AI agentic system because you've got the base, which then supports all of the different agents on top of it, which may be hitting and interacting with different parts of the development cycle. And it just it's a circular, going around and around in an agile fashion. So that's one of the things we're really excited about. And we see the agentic AI really happening in real life with our customers.
Oh, thank you, Barbara.
Sure. So from a workday perspective, we really see agentic AI being able to help support the workforce while handling mundane tasks and freeing people up to be able to do new creative strategic opportunities. And thinking about one of the products that, we use for our customers, but also to your question, to your point, that we use internally. And as a member of our legal compliance corporate affairs team, I see being incredibly useful in demonstrating that is we have a product called the Contract Intelligence Agent powered by Eversort AI. And it really helps in terms of contract review and being able to free up our lawyers to really focus on more strategic business items as opposed to mining through contracts, trying to find clauses, trying to find best practices. Instead, it's able to bring together a unified contract repository. And so you have quick visibility into your agreements instead of having to go through these long manual reviews. And you can respond to inquiries quickly. You're able to have self-service access to actionable insights and share like key insights across the business as opposed to spending all of your time trying to sort through all PDFs or trying to read through the agreements yourself. So I think it's an example that's, helping our customers, but we're also seeing a lot of benefit in internally in our own use cases already too.
Wow. I mean, I think what's coming through for me, like listening to you all here, is it's just like having a multiplication of your workforce here, almost to kind of pick up different areas of opportunity that you might not have been able to achieve before, reach new heights. Fantastic, kind of excitement in this space, but also, of course, if you're building out a workforce to do new tasks, there's going to be new risks that come up. What are the kind of the most pressing risks from your perspective that you're seeing as agentic AI is increasingly adopted? And what are you doing about it? What needs to be done to mitigate some of those risks? Sarah, can I get your perspective first?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that AI is a very multidisciplinary area. So at HCL Tech and also in my general experience with agentic AI, but also just AI in any realm, you really want to have different perspectives coming together, looking at it from different angles, because there are many different risks and they are also across all of the areas. And so you want to have somebody from HR looking at it from a candidate perspective, for example. But then there's the legal side of things. There's also the technical risks that exist, and then also how it, from a user perspective and from a enterprise perspective, you've got a lot of things going on. So two of the things that we have found really useful at HCL Tech is, first of all, to have a governing body that really looks at each of these use cases that are high risk, where really the focus, there needs to be detailed focus from different teams, and they come together with their domain expertise to really tease out what are those risks and how we can mitigate them across the perspectives of all of these domain experts. So that's one thing that we do on a very regular basis and in a very coordinated way. The second thing that we recommend and we practice, what we preach, is AI red teaming. AI red teaming is great because it can look at all of those risks. It's testing across the entire ecosystem of what could possibly go wrong. And that's what you're trying to simulate, is that outlier that you didn't necessarily code for, but could happen. So you're really trying to break the system, but doing so in a proactive way so that you can make it stronger before you actually deploy. So we find, that's really kind of a fun thing. If you've ever created or built your own AI systems via agentic AI or a simple AI chatbot, I think a lot, you really want to iterate and test extensively. And AI red teaming does that at scale for all of those different influences that may happen, from user behavior to how the bot may be actually prompted in a way that's not appropriate. So you can make those adjustments as you go along. So those are the two recommendations I suggest.
Thank you. And I must admit, during the prep session for this, I came away uh, desperate to join one of your red teams, to kind of do one of these sessions. It sounded so interesting, and
It
also
is,
so important.
absolutely.
Barbara, Ed, do you want to sort of build on that in terms of what the risk landscape, I suppose, looks from your perspective and how you're going about navigating it?
Sure. I mean, to me, one of the challenges has been that until fairly recently, there was a lot of uncertainty about how to, and this isn't just agentic AI, but it's AI in general, to how really to deploy it, to build it, to develop it in a trusted way. For those of us who have been in the privacy industry for some time, we're used to being able to look at standards, at certifications, and longstanding methods. And so, I think we're just getting there now with agentic AI and AI, where we can point to those similar types of assessments, certifications that can help deploy and develop in a trusted way. And so we've invested heavily in the NIST AI risk management framework, as well as the ISO 42001 standards, and gotten certified to those. And I think those really help us build out a comprehensive control framework that can evolve, help measure risk, and should be able to evolve with any types of new AI. So you have a program where you're constantly looking, reviewing your program, your policies, your procedures, your risks, and evaluating, and being able to put in mitigating steps to assess risk and to mitigate the risk. And we thought they were both important, I'll say, to do not only the NIST AI risk management framework, but also the ISO, because the ISO really demonstrates more a commitment to quality standards for overall responsible AI governance program, where the NIST attestation really validates the risk-based approach to AI governance and the ongoing. And so as we think about agentic AI, quality and risk aren't mutually exclusive. We think they're really linked together, and having the comprehensive program, I think will really help continue to mature, but also be able to help, us internally for our use cases, but also for our customers to understand that we have this trust framework that's been built out, and that'll evolve as risks evolve.
Wow. I know that in common with me, a lot of people are writing that down straight away to start thinking about adopting those approaches themselves. Look, one of the things that I think has been kind of in common with each of you, and we're really grateful here at Sybil for the time you've given us to help build out our paper and our thinking in this space, but is that sense of kind of being at the forefront and having to work out how to do this when there isn't necessarily a template. Ed, when we were speaking in advance, you were saying you've managed to take some of that template though from existing sort of data protection experience. How are you going about, I suppose, using your existing experience to manage that risk, and what's your take on the risk?
Yeah, I think it's all about accountability, which is something that's near and dear to SIPL, and SIPL has been leading for years. And it's not a question of if we should use this technology; it's a question of how, because the why is so clear. We need to use this technology to scale, and we need to use everyone else is using this technology, and to stay competitive, we need to figure out how to use this technology. So the question is how to use this technology responsibly. Fortunately, as you're alluding to, Stephen, privacy has always been the leading edge of tech regulation and responsible use. And privacy can really be a leader here because agents and AI are all about data. And that privacy experience, and it's all about also about demonstrating responsibility, which we've done in the privacy space for a long time. So I think privacy teams can really lead the way for companies and organizations to demonstrate accountability and responsibility of use by leveraging existing risk assessment processes and governance mechanisms. I'm a big fan of the existing privacy program we've built, but I think it could be leveraged to do more. Sometimes you don't know what you think about something or can't properly identify the risks until you go through a process and put it in writing. And that's been so helpful for privacy. And I think it's going to be so helpful for AI as well. I think the key difference, and Sarah spoke to this, is, whereas privacy can really lead on data, AI involves other teams. You have to have, ethical considerations, security considerations, safety considerations, IP considerations, and all these things need to fit into a singular process. So I think privacy can really lead the way, and I think the processes we built for privacy can really be leveraged. But it's just important to look at AI through all these different lenses, and it's more of a team sport than data use and privacy has been in the past. But I'm excited. I think that privacy is really, really, and data protection experts are really going to be the leaders.
Wow. I think there's a lot of people on this call who'll be very pleased to see that. And I was really intrigued, just sticking with you, Ed, about kind of what you said at the start, which sounded almost like agentic AI can be kind of your new best privacy enhancing technology. In a way here, it's helping you process the data without seeing the data and helping you get insights and make better decisions. And just building on that, I suppose, how are you using agentic AI to scale compliance efforts, whether it's privacy, cyber, or more generally, at Salesforce?
Sure.
How's it going in practice?
Sure. One thing, as a leader of a privacy team, I want to be as close to the business as possible and understanding the product truth and the factual truth of what's happening with the business. And agents can really help. And I also want to be on top of policy and global developments and what's happening in the world, and taking those global developments and feeding that to the business. And that strategic side of things is what's so important, but I can't do that without information. And agents can really provide me better information than I've ever had before, and it can provide me that information more quickly. And so that's really exciting. And like policy scanners or risk, agents identifying risk internally and bubbling that risk up. It still needs to be evaluated by people, but so much of this is in Barbara's time, the laborious things that we hate about work. That are we really want to just get to the strategic aspects and figuring things out, and agents can really get us there. And then a more granular example, a data subject access request or something that every company has to deal with to a degree. And I think that's always been such a manual, laborious process historically. And I would just say for us, being able to use agents and AI and automation and putting that into the process enables us to respond more effectively and efficiently. We've also been able to address compliance threats better, by effectively identifying and filtering out spam requests, which big companies like Salesforce get a lot of. I don't know if smaller companies do, without having to risk compliance for the people that are genuinely seeking to exercise their privacy rights. And so we have a much better DSAR program thanks to this innovation and the AI that we've incorporated into it, and it's less human intensive than it's ever been.
Amazing. Look, Barbara, you gave a really compelling example earlier on up front, around how you're using agentic AI in terms of compliance, yourselves in terms of contracts. Are there any other examples, I suppose, that come to mind in terms of how you're deploying agentic AI to help with your regulatory burden, I suppose?
I mean, I would think more, I don't know that this is necessarily from the regulatory burden, but going more back to the security and privacy and thinking about that. One of the products that we've been talking about is our Workday agent system of record, powered by Workday Illuminate. And it's basically a way to see a complete view of your AI agents or third-party agents, just like you would your workforce. And so being able to really understand what type of access they have, the agents would have, and being able to go in and define the data that can be accessed, control the actions, because to your point there, that's where some of the risks come up, is the uncertainty about what information can an agent access. So being able to have that similar tool set as you have for your workforce to be able to manage and view any of the access that the agents would have in one place.
Wow, thank you. Sarah, anything to add? Are we going to see agents joining your red teams soon?
Well, yes. I mean, we are an IT company, we're an AI company. So we always look for ways that we can take manual processes and obviously streamline them. We've got the theme of service transformation. We have to adopt that as well so that we can offer it to our customers. So we're always looking at ways we can use AI agents internally to help us. And it really comes down to, a very simple, classic, almost customer service. That's, something that's really easy from a knowledge-based perspective because each even business unit has its own discipline and domain of information that's going to be specific to it. So that's a great place to leverage agents that can be multi-purpose, but they're just pulling data that's specific from that particular knowledge base, the SOPs of the particular group you're working with, or the policies that they have that are not necessarily enterprise wide. So you reuse an agent capability, but just apply it to a different database or data group of files or documents. So we find that's really useful, especially, just providing that access to information and then quickly being able to get that connected, that integration and speaking to the interoperability between different departments. I think that's really important. And just the way systems have to speak to each other through API, we have agents doing the same thing and working and integrating that information from different groups to then find those insights across the different disciplines. So I spoke in a lot, general terms. I don't want to give away too much, but I think it's just really the sky's the limit, especially in terms of low risk types of information that you're keeping internally to your organization. Really, you can leverage so many efficiencies that way that I recommended. And that way you aren't duplicating efforts, you're reusing different assets without having to do it manually. So that's just your low stakes that everybody should be trying their agents and agentic AI frameworks and systems on. And then with the high risk ones, I think we've talked about, yeah, you want to be able to innovate there, but you do have to take a risk-based approach. And that's probably where you're going to spend a lot more of your resources in terms of AI red teaming. And for example, I mentioned before, we do spend the AI ethics committee meetings on those high risk systems because those are the ones where you really need those important milestones of human oversight to make sure that you have a system that is going to follow your directions and that you've provided the right guardrails and directions in your system prompting.
All right, look, you've started to take us into the next area that I wanted to take us onto, just around, I suppose, how are you working within your organization, across organizations, and with regulators to kind of close some of whether it's the legal, the regulatory, the technological gaps in this space, because
Mhm.
there's still a lot being worked out.
Oh, there definitely is. And I'm glad that Barbara mentioned ISO 42001. That's also something that's important for us at HCL Tech. It's important to align on those standards and those frameworks that are recognized across the globe. And a lot of times we look at things as in what is the most stringent umbrella that we have. And then if we get that, if we cover that, then, we feel more confident with things that are less stringent because we've already gone, crossed that bar that we need to. So that's how we look at things, even if we're only deploying in one particular area geographically, or we only have one regulation that we may have to pay attention to. We really look at it with a future-proofing our agentic AI systems because we know technology changes so quickly, and of course, regulation and other frameworks are catching up constantly. So let's choose something that we know in the future might come to pass versus, having a very, we don't want to hurry up and catch up when we know that, okay, this is something that is going to be, we're a global company, so we want to look at it from a global approach and we want to future proof.
Thank you. Look, sticking with that theme around a global company, yeah, there's quite a patchwork to work through here in this area. Barbara, can I pass to you to just talk through how you're kind of responding to that regulatory patchwork in this area and kind of taking forward your own approach?
Sure. I mean, as quickly as we've seen AI and then agentic AI develop over the past how many years, we're seeing the regulations around the globe come just as quickly and at times inconsistently. But I will say, some of the things that we are champions for and we have been seeing reflected in a lot of the regulations globally and in states in the US is, the risk-based approach. And we think it's really important to have a risk-based, context-specific approach. And so that we don't end up with very prescriptive technical requirements that aren't going to keep up with the pace of innovation, that are going to be outdated quickly. And to the extent that we do see those risk-based approaches, it aligns really well with recognition of interoperable standards and certification programs like the NIST AI risk management or the ISO framework that then companies can build and map to these different regulations and be able to demonstrate how they're doing the right thing. But I do think that's critical, is to see the risk-based approach and then to be able to have a recognition of these interoperable standards and certifications. And so that, something again, that SIPL has always talked about is that helps the foster adoption of accountable interoperable governance programs. And that's what we've been trying to build, is really a approach that we can demonstrate aligns to these standard certifications and builds trust with our customers as well as regulators.
Thank you, and extra points for the references to some of the favorite things that Stipple in terms of accountability and a risk-based approach. You talked about the kind of the patchwork of regulations here, and of course, data protection is kind of one part of that patchwork. Ed, what does this kind of mean for yourself as a privacy leader in this space? What's, I suppose, the role of a privacy leader in terms of, I think you described it as a team sport in this
Yeah.
area?
Well, it's good for me because I know data protection. I do data protection regulation, so that's great. And globally, data protection regulators have really been taking the lead on regulating AI, especially in Europe, but globally, because most countries on Earth have data protection laws. And as I said before, AI and agents rely so heavily on data that the most comprehensive way to initially regulate agents and AI is through data protection regulation. I'll echo what Barbara and Sarah said, that regulation should recognize that some use cases are higher risk than others and regulate according to risk. Global regulators, from what I've seen, have largely recognized that agents are lower risk and more privacy protected than other AI innovations. For instance, the French CNIL, which is widely recognized as one of the stricter privacy regulators on Earth, issued regulatory guidance pointing to agents as an example of an AI system that doesn't necessarily require consent for data processing. I was thrilled to see that because that's huge for our customers. Our customers, especially European customers, want to follow what the CNIL recommends. And this is going to enable them to use agents in a reasonable way, especially for low risk use cases, without having to always get consent from end users. And I believe that the CNIL came to this determination because it recognized agents as generally being lower risk for the same reasons that we've discussed today, and even being beneficial for privacy. So I think it was the right decision, demonstrates how privacy and data protection experience is beneficial for AI regulation. I think if you know data, you know data regulation, which is why I'm actually happy to see the CNIL leading in this space. And that proposal that AI systems and use of data in AI systems should be able to be legitimized without consent is also reflected in the recent European Commission Digital Omnibus. So things in Europe are Europe's leading in a good way, and I think that's thanks to the data protection and privacy experience and leadership they have. I'll use this one opportunity to plug. That's why we need a data protection law here in the U.S. at the federal level, and I'm always advocating for that. But honestly, as Barbara said, like that's critical for trust. It's critical for competitiveness, given this is how the rules of the road for AI are going to be written, and the U.S. needs to have a leading voice in those conversations.
Wow. Spirited intervention at the end there, Ed. Thank you so much. We're going to move into the segment. We're going to have a brief bit of Q&A, and Jen has just kindly joined us. Jen, I'll pass the mic across to you.
Yeah, there's so many amazing questions that have been in the chat. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but one that really stuck out to me was, how are you increasing trust and reducing distrust among stakeholders? Is trust really central to getting the most out of agentic AI, especially with its decision-making functions?
Who wants to jump in?
We see
can.
trust.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go quickly so you can go as well. We see trust as definitely something that shareholders must have in us, that customers must have in us, and our enterprise, our employees, and everybody, our partners must have in us. So it's front and center, and we know that responsible AI and AI governance is really important in engendering that trust across that ecosystem of all the players. So we really focus on that. We have an Office of Responsible AI and Governance. I already shared about our AI Ethics Committee. We also do a lot of work externally with partners such as yourself because we feel it's really important, not just internally, but also with the community to really put out the fact that there's a lot of good that can come out of AI. So let's focus on those benefits. But also, we're aware of the risks, but we have that framework in order to control them. So that's definitely, always what is leading my way every day when I get up in the morning is how can we trust one another with AI and with the entire ecosystem, because there's wonderful work that can be done. Over to you, Barbara.
A lot of the same, I was going to say. I already talked about the certifications, which I think are very helpful in building trust. We believe in transparency. We have fact sheets for our products that are available for our customers on our community site. But then I think a lot of it is, especially for us that are larger companies, is sharing what we've learned along the way about building responsible AI programs and being able to do it. So, for example, we have a free AI masterclass that's out available on the web that's broken out into different places that talks about basically all things AI, how to get started with AI, the business value, how to think about responsible AI governance. It's broken up into lessons. Because we think that's critical to have, other companies understand, how to think about it, how to think about building the program out themselves. So we're trying to share that information and and help educate as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think trust is everything. People aren't going to use the technology or share their data with the technology if they don't trust it. And I think it's incumbent on us as a service provider to ensure that the technology is trusted. I think it's for me, the North Star for trust is customer control, and the ability to control what these agents do and ensure that the agents behave and are used responsibly. And we do that through all the sorts of controls that we put into the agents around the ability for customers to put guardrails in place, to provide clear instructions for what agents should and shouldn't do, for less vendor and human involvement in our customers' work, by putting customers in control, working directly with the agents, and less human involvement. But this whole conversation reminds me of like 2014 and when we advocated for the cloud.
Yeah.
And I remember how little trust there was in the cloud at the time, and it seemed like an uphill battle. But if we hadn't have convinced, if we hadn't have built the cloud in such a way that it could be trusted to demonstrate trust, I don't know where we would have been in 2020 with COVID, and all of us had to move online entirely. And if we hadn't have built that trust in the cloud, I don't know what would have happened to global economies or all of our jobs in 2020. And I think similarly with agents, this is a move we all have to make, and it's incumbent on us as industry to build that trust, because we're going to have to rely on it. We're all going to have to use it. And I think it's going to be just as critical as we move to cloud.
Thank you so much. Jen, I don't know if we've got time for one last
Yeah.
very speedy question.
Maybe we can talk really quickly about some guardrails, top guardrails for incentivizing agentic experimentation, but also making sure that you're following strong AI controls.
I would go back to the risk-based approach, definitely. And so you're going to have more human oversight in something that's more high risk because you might be impacting very important outcomes for individuals, groups, or society. So you have a huge role in those people's lives. So you have to really be careful of how AI is interacting there. And then also, this was something that I think some of us talked about before, having a shared vocabulary and hierarchy and taxonomy of AI is very useful because it's funny how you may actually be talking about the same thing across organizations, but you don't know you are because you're using different words or terminology. So sometimes when you level set, especially in contracting, even I've seen this, the definitions up front. So everyone is sure, okay, if I have some problem with what they're referring to, I can always go back to our shared glossary of definitions to make sure we're all talking the same language.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's probably a great point for us to break off there. I think that this real need to bring up kind of the skill of the workforce, really, in terms of understanding different types of AI in their applications. But also, I think we've got a great sense of some of the things that we as kind of governance professionals in this space really need to be doing through this session. It felt at parts like a simple drinking game, almost, with references to accountability, to a risk-based approach, to co-regulatory mechanisms here, like certifications and standards as a real way of building out a trusted framework in this area. And also, just that kind of emphasis on it being a team sport, on us needing to bring together all of these different disciplines and minds to get the governance of this area right. Thank you so much. I'll pass to Boyana to wrap us up.
Thank you so much. It really was an excellent conversation, and a lot what we have heard generally for the good AI governance is going to be really important to continue in the world of agentic AI. But of course, there are new risks, and I think some of the questions in the chat reflect that. The fact that agents are becoming more autonomous, the fact that they're continuously learning, the fact that they might be expanding also their ability to act across different, as Sarah has said, different business functions. So the question of human, I suppose, intervention and human oversight over the agents is going to really become really important. But we've heard lots of case studies for growing agentic AI. We've heard a lot of, I love that, leveraging privacy tools, leveraging accountability tools. I mean, this really has to be the way forward because we can't reinvent the wheel. We can't ask businesses yet another risk assessments, right? We have to integrate. And we at CIPL talk a lot about that. How do we integrate various controls, tools for the whole stack into one, right? And whole disciplines into one. I loved references to red teaming, to standards and certifications, and there were some mentions there, not just CIPL accountability wheel, but also NIST, to risk assessments and the need for taxonomy. I think look, we've always talked about the lack of risk taxonomy, Stephen, right? I mean, when this was something that we have to do better in all of the fields. But now with agentic AI, I think we have to think about both benefits of what the agents are doing, but also what these risks could be. Security could be a huge benefit because they're going to be amazing in preventing all kinds of cyber attacks, but they can go rogue as well, right? So at which point does an agent how do we understand the risk when the good becomes rogue, for example? I loved the ideas of having agentic AI system of records. I mean, again, records of processing, all these boring things under GDPR kind of could be helpful right here as well. And I think, Barbara, to your point, we need to monitor what kind of agents are working because it's just like a workforce. They have to be registered somewhere. Somebody needs to know they exist. I liked a lot the call for AI in privacy and security. Maybe we could even do more digging deeper into some of the case studies on a response to a subject access request, correction, deletion, but also developing better privacy notices. Wouldn't it be amazing if my agent can just tell me, deconstruct a privacy notice and help me actually navigate better so that I am, as Ed has said, in better control. We talked a lot about regulatory fragmentation, but the fact that also we're expecting lots of regulatory guidance. And I mean, I think the ICO has done some CNIL, we hear Korea and others. So there's a lot of regulators gearing up to do more work on agentic AI. And I think industry does have to inform that process and exchange in that dialogue and ensure in that regulatory guidance also risk-based approach. And that means also understanding the benefits of this. Finally, I like how you, Ed, had mentioned the European omnibus. There are some interesting examples of how digital simplification can take place. And the question, I think, to me will be, does this work for LLM? Well, yes, but what about the agentic AI? What about the spatial AI? What about the physical AI, the next generation AI tools? So that's really what we need to ask. And we at SIPL have actually also published our proposal for the overall digital package simplification, and lots of the ideas we talked about, like sandboxes, risk-based approach, purpose limitation, revisiting. I don't know how you teach an agent purpose limitation, but it would be really interesting to code that as well. So with that, thank you everybody again. We've heard a lot, but I think there are lots of questions, including controller processor. Doesn't really work in AI, in agentic AI. I'm not sure who is who. I think we need to do more work, and thank you everybody for continuing to provide these examples and also answer some of these difficult questions. So I enjoyed this very much. 4 minutes over the time. I think, Stephen, we have to wrap up. And everybody, thank you, and we'll continue.